Fish on First Live is presented by About the Fans. We've partnered with them this season on a brand new merchandise collection featuring t-shirts, polos, hats, and other accessories that Marlins fans will absolutely love. Head on over to aboutthefans.com to shop the FOF collection. Use our special coupon code FOF10 to save 10% off your order. Enter code FOF10 at checkout to save 10% and continue supporting what we do over here.
This is Griffin Conan.
This is Xavier Edwards.
This is Liam Hicks.
This is Dave Myers, and you're watching Fish on First Live.
Happy Marcy Day, everybody. Already got one comment on that. It's Fish on First Live, presented by About the Fans. And I finally actually remembered to wear some of our merch on the stream. There is our new Gus Bus t-shirt on the night where he is playing his former organization, of course, acquired from the Yankees at this time right around a year ago. Promo code across the bottom of the screen, FOF10 at checkout to save 10% on the Gus Bus shirt, as well as hats, polos, stickers, other accessories, and support what we do. I'm here with Kevin Barral and Nate Karsmer to break down deadline stuff, this Yankees series, and a whole lot more. That intro, the last one ever with Jesus Sanchez in there, he's been a staple of the intro for a couple of years now. He has been on this Marlins roster for parts of 6 seasons, and he was the only guy that actually went since last you heard from us, because we were on the stream live when they traded Nick Fortes. Those were the only 2 deals that the Marlins made, which means shout out to one of our stream guests on the last show, Gabriel Revilla, super sub. He was the only guy among us on the show that went under on the 4.5 total Marlins deadline trades. Made just 2 of them, and he precisely said 2. So, the rest of us went over. I'll start with Nate for once. We start with Kevin too often. It was an extremely busy deadline day across baseball, and it's been weird, like seeing everybody describe it as such, because the Marlins, like relative to the rest of the league, the Marlins were really chill. I think all of us most of us reasonably expected them to be very busy, and then decided that they liked the team that they had, and more so that they like these guys that are still under club control to continue being really valuable in the future, it seems like.
Yeah, I think the biggest surprise of the day to all of us was seeing Cal Quantrill stick around, I believe. Of course, we had a long discussion about this last night, but I was in the group that wanted Edward Cabrera to be moved. I think it was the perfect time for Miami to cash in on for Miami to cash in on what he did this season after 4 seasons of the roller coaster. And they didn't. I assume they just didn't get the offers they wanted from him, in which they should. If he's under team control for a couple more seasons, no reason to give up on him now and toss him away for a guy that they don't believe is a major league staple and could be equal to what Cabrera is giving them right now. And this is the chance for Cabrera to prove the Marlins right, and that he can go out there and still capitalize on these adjustments and continue to build on what he's done for the first half of the season, which has been incredible. On the Sandy front, I was in the group that I want him to stick around. Kind of the opposite of Cabrera. His value is so low right now, even after 2 amazing starts in his past 2 outings. I believe that right now still nowhere close to the value you would have got from spring training, even after opening day. That's when probably his value peaked if you're Sandy. And then with Cal, you could look at this many ways. According to Cred out on the Spaces last night, they would have got about nothing from him. And if you look at it from that way, then it's like, well, something's better than nothing. But you also look at it like this guy's a number 3 starter. He's going to eat innings. He's going to give you outs. It might not be 3 times through the order, but he's going to get you outs probably through the 5th inning every time. And that could be valuable on this team. Maybe the Marlins feel like guys like Mazur, guys like Snelling aren't ready to be at Miami full time, and they want to just keep them in AAA. I can't focus all these comments. Keep them in AAA, let them to continue to develop, and that's fine with me. Looking at it, I was a little bit upset at first, but if you look at it, that the Marlins, I guess they're confident that they can make a run here. I went through the schedule last time of the Spaces in August. Teams like the Yankees, the Astros, the Blue Jays, the Guardians, who held on to Stephen Kwan. 5 games against the Braves and Truist, and that's always not fun. And then the Braves come here, then the Mets at Citi Field. So it's going to be interesting. It's quite a change to see the Marlins not sell everyone at the deadline, especially when they're kind of in the hunt, kind of hovering around 500 like we saw in 2022. But this group is much better than them. We've known that for a long time now. So we'll have to wait and see what this team does. But overall, quiet, unexpected. But we'll have to just revisit guys like Cabby and Sandy in the offseason, it seems like.
Yeah, you made that comp that I had made briefly yesterday about the fact that this is the last time they had a deadline like this was in 2022. And it just, the trends as the deadline approaches was so much different this time around, where they've just been playing so well. You noted about the upcoming schedule, and it looks kind of intimidating, especially on this particular homestand right here, Yankees and then Astros. The thing is, they've been beating good teams. They've now won 5 straight series overall, 4 straight against teams that were better than them, quote unquote, entering that series. And yet they still pulled it off. They're still playing legitimately well in a way that, even though on paper it looks bad, even though they have to dig out of a 7-game hole, extremely unlikely, they continue to surprise us series after series to this point. And it seems kind of just unfair to them to, at this point, to treat them like a bad team when they've been a very good team now for a month and a half stretch, dating all the way back until middle of June so far. As we were joined by Alex Carver again. You heard plenty of him last night. We had our long spaces discussion. And, so I think I want to just go to Sandy more specifically, because Sandy was the guy that has meant so much to this organization. And he's sticking around, at least through the end of this season. A guy that was, and Craig kind of disputed some of the rumors that came out. There was one in particular, we're not going to specify particular reporters, but there was one that said he had packed his bags. You guys saw that one, that he packed his bags for the road trip. And it was like, but it was insinuating that he was already at peace with the decision that he was gone. And then there was Jim Bowden, who a couple days before the deadline, maybe it was just one day before the deadline, said that he was extremely likely to go, and that the Marlins were getting offers that had motivated them. And I think I've spoken about this before, how I think Jim Bowden in particular is pretty biased in his reporting towards the Marlins, and I don't really take his word at face value when he reports on them. But I mean, from what it sounds like, there wasn't any there's no agreement in place. There wasn't the same kind of drama we've seen at some previous deadlines. It didn't seem like he got all that close in terms of just agreeing on the value of the player. So Kevin, doesn't it come down to that, is that maybe they were open to moving him, but if you're not going to get pieces in return that you think are going to meaningfully improve the team, if you're not going to get guys back that are going to be some of the best prospects in the organization, ones that are going to impact the team a lot, they really had to be overwhelmed in order to trade a guy that has meant so much to the organization, and a guy whose potential has been amazing when he's healthy and back in a groove.
Yeah, you said it. I mean, I think obviously the Marlins' intentions, who knows? Maybe their intentions were to wholeheartedly trade Sandy, but the offers weren't there. The offers were never going to be there. Unfortunately, I don't think a team was ever going to give up what they had to acquire, or what the Marlins wanted to acquire someone like Sandy, just given, first of all, they still value him very high. They still think there's upside in what he could do next season or in the year after that if the club option is accepted. So I think that with Sandy, just unfortunately, maybe the price that the Marlins envisioned to start the season just wasn't there, and it clearly wasn't. And it seems like the Marlins, obviously, I don't know how much of these reports are true. Obviously, Craig told us that the Marlins and the Yankees never spoke yesterday and on the deadline, but if they had spoken at some point, obviously Spencer Jones and George Lombard Jr. are the two names that they're definitely going to be asking for. That caliber of player on any team, on any minor league system, was definitely asked for, you would have to assume. And unfortunately, the team, when the Marlins asked, the team probably said, we can't give that up. Look what Sandy's done for us this season. And unfortunately, and you've noted this many times, Eli, and our bold prediction hit, by the way.
Yeah.
That he was not traded. Sandy probably wasn't, that Sandy probably wasn't going to be a big contributor to a postseason roster. Who knows? Unless he really stepped it up in the second half of the season. Marlins now have an opportunity for Sandy to pitch really not under pressure. I mentioned this on a Spaces. This guy's been hearing the trade rumors ever since he was rehabbing from Tommy John surgery, or he was coming down to the wire with his rehab. Ever since he took the ball day one in spring training in Port St. Lucie against the New York Mets, like he's been hearing the trade rumors ever since. So for him to go out there this second half of the season, no trade rumors, not having to worry about that stuff, and now potentially pitch for what they would assume is going to be a quote unquote postseason run, that he has an opportunity to help his team in a position that unfortunately he's just been hurt for. Last time in 2023, the Marlins were in a postseason run, unfortunately went down. So he has an opportunity for that. And really to pitch without any pressure of the trade stuff or having to look awesome to get traded. Like he has an opportunity to really just get loosened up and pitch and look the way he has the last two starts. The Cardinals one wasn't anything great, but still you go 5 shutout innings. That's good in its own, or 6. And then obviously that Padres start was what you want to see. So last 2 starts have been good. Doesn't face the Yankees, will face the Astros, which seemed like was a team that almost traded for him. And he'll face his former teammate Jesus Sanchez as well on Monday.
Going to Carver here, they did pick up a few new players at the deadline in Ryan Gusto, who's a rookie starter that they just sent down to AAA Jacksonville, and presumably he'll be in their rotation for the time being. They got an infielder in Chase Jaworski, who was his birthday yesterday, traded on his birthday of all things. And then his outfielder, Esmil Valencia. Any quick thoughts on the guys that they got back for Sanchez and how they fit in? Because we'll have to update our FOF top 30 list pretty soon and figure out exactly where Jaworski fits in, potentially Valencia. But I think Jaworski on the prospect side is the one who's more notable.
Yeah, it'll probably be back end top 30 is my opinion. We'll see what we come to in our agreements when we have that conversation. Probably, I guess, early next week is what we have it slated for. So, yeah, we'll see what we come to with that. I really think it's more of a utility ceiling. I think it's kind of limited, especially in terms of his contact consistency. It's just not there. Plays multiple positions, which could be okay. I guess the glove is decent from what we're hearing and seeing. So, yeah, I think it's more of a utility player ceiling, especially because, like I said, limited size and the contact consistency. He doesn't strike out a lot, which is a good thing, but the contact consistency is just he doesn't hit the ball hard whatsoever. So that's going to be the challenge for that player. There's time. He can rise up the rankings, but I would say, in my opinion, with where the Marlins system is right now, he'll probably, if he does get ranked in this top 30, it'll probably be in the bottom 10 of what I'm looking at in terms of this list. It'll probably be like 20 to 30 if we do rank him. I think we probably will, but it'll be low-end top 30. The Gusto pick, I think Sean did a great job writing about that player and right now he only throws, two plus pitches, but he has the makings of many, many more. So I like that article a lot. I like how Sean explained the fact that this is a good ground floor guy to get in on. So I like that. I think that this guy, the Marlins are known for figuring out pitchers like this who have good ground floor stuff that just need to develop pitches more, but they do have the makings of multiple pitches. The fact that guy can throw his fastball multiple ways, it's decent velo, and the changeup is plus. I think that's a solid player for them to get, probably back end rotational starter or bullpen floor. But that guy has a major league future for sure. Even if it is out of the bullpen, that's a player you take. So the Gusto, I think, is for me the most intriguing player that they got over Jaworski. I think that Gusto is the most intriguing player that they got at this deadline. They didn't get a ton. They didn't do a ton. Of course, you guys just mentioned it. They didn't get what they wanted. They weren't going to get what they wanted for Sandy and Edward. It's fine. But I am excited to see that they're calling up guys that deserve their chance. Troy, Marcy, we'll see more. I expect to see Joe Mack. We're going to see more guys that are in-house that have earned their chance. And you're seeing one tonight. You saw one with Troy Johnston. Thank God that happened. And he didn't have to go into minor league free agency, having never gotten his chance with this organization because he's given his life to it. Literally, his wife as well is there with him every game in Jacksonville. Kevin can tell you that. They travel together. They had their baby together in Jacksonville. It's a great story, a great guy that's given his life to this team for the bulk of his adult life. And it should be talked about as much as it has been, if not even more. I'm super proud of Troy. I can't wait to see him in person. Great dude, great family, great partner that he has. I can't say enough. It's great. And I'm glad it got the attention that it deserved. Marcy tonight is another story of a guy that's given a lot to the Marlins, not as long as Troy, but he's been here for a little bit and he's getting a shot. And these guys are guys that aren't top 100 MLB prospects, but they give a lot to this game and a lot to this team, and they deserve their chance.
That right there is Troy's dad, who made the trip along with his family and his wife and his little baby. They went all the way to St. Louis, and they were rewarded a hit in his very first at bat. They are undefeated in the Troy era, 2-0, having won each of those last two games in St. Louis. I do want to talk quickly about Sanchi, where because this is the end of his tenure with the team after very long, being acquired 6 years ago in a deadline deal from the Rays, and now going to Houston. So there'll be more to talk about him on the next stream prior to the Astros series. But both him and Fortes out the door. We reacted to Fortes on the previous show when it happened. What are you going to think about, Nate? Your first things that come to mind when you think about Sanchi's Marlins tenure? I'll throw out just a couple on the good and the bad. The Grand Slam robbery that he had in Seattle in 2023 for a guy that is not particularly known for his defense, especially not his leaping ability, and taking back a Grand Slam that ended up saving that game. And then on the other end, there was that incident towards the end of last season when he was intentionally walked, and he did not actually go all the way to first base before being replaced by a pinch runner. He turned to the dugout a little bit too early, and by rule, it was called out instead of actually being given a walk, just because he didn't exactly follow through on that. So on both ends of the spectrum, that's what comes to mind to me. Anything additional that for you from having watched parts of 6 seasons of him in Miami?
The first thing to me is we're looking at it right now, that smile. I've never seen a guy play with such joy. I mean, you maybe go back to Jose Fernandez. That guy always had a smile on his face. But Jesus Sanchez, I've probably seen that maybe a handful of times. That guy was not smiling on a baseball field. I went to his last game at home and sent fans away with a home run there. And, of course, his last game as a Marlin. He always supplied the only 2 runs on Wednesday's game against St. Louis. So he did well at the end, made the Marlins, he did well at the end for him. Jesus Sanchez had a great time in Miami. The baseball IQ was never always there. He made some mistakes, but that was a part of the Sanchi experience, man. Interesting routes to the balls in right field, and that time in center field, of course, that was spent in 2020. Was it 2022? He played center, I believe. Yes, that was an experiment. He was so much fun to watch. Hit probably some of the farthest home runs I've ever seen. Of course, at Coors, and then I think the second longest home run in Lone Depot Park history last year against the Reds, only behind obviously El Garcia. Sorry to bring that one up, but those memories, of course, in Seattle, that home run robbery, and just how much fun that guy was to be around. He was a great guy in the clubhouse. Connor Norby tweeted out yesterday. He only played with Sanchi for a year, but he said he was one of his favorite teammates ever, and I can attest to that. He was awesome. Always had a smile on, still in the clubhouse. Great presence in there. So going to be missed, but he's already fitting in well for Houston. He's slotting in third in front of Carlos Correa there tonight, a big game in Fenway. So he's going to be relied on big time. It's going to be a smaller ballpark, obviously, at Dyken Field, they call it now. So it's an opportunity for him to maybe cash in on that 30 home run value that Miami's front office always thought he had. So good opportunity for him. We're going to see him here in 3 days already. So it's going to be weird to see him in the blue and orange. But great memories of Sanchi, and definitely going to miss him.
We've teased Kevin privately about this when Sanchez hit one of the longest home runs ever in this ballpark. The fact that going down, they got him the ball and all that. I'm not going to go too far into the specifics. I brought it up just because that's what stood out about his skill set, right, Kevin? The fact that he hit some of the most majestic home runs in Marlins history. It wasn't quite the frequency of Stanton, but the distances were amazing. There was both that one, the one in Coors that went even farther. In Coors Field, nearly 500 feet. That was the one skill that really stood out about him, even though he only saw it part of the time. But that's kind of, I think that made him pretty popular among fans. The fact that he had the potential to go off like that at any moment and change the game.
Yeah, I want to go back really quickly to Gusto, because we look at that acquisition and it, obviously not the same situation with the pitcher, but it reminds me when the Marlins got Ryan Weathers, in 2023. This is a guy who, they optioned Weathers just like they optioned Gusto to AAA. It's a work in progress type of guy. You'll see what you're going to get. And look how Weathers has turned out. Obviously, different regime, but I don't know. It just reminds me of that type of pickup where obviously the Marlins were in a buying position not last year, 2 years ago. And they made that type of trade. Gusto is one of those guys you're going to try to shape up to see what you could do. So Carver, Sean both mentioned it pretty well. Just wanted to add that just more or less because it's one of those guys who was once, I believe, a top prospect in their organization. Obviously, Astros farm system, not the greatest, but, think it was worth just noting that really quickly because I know we moved on pretty quick from that. But I like that, like Jaworski as well. Other guys really fast, like really, really fast. He has 50 stolen bases, which is now the organizational lead. So just wanted to quickly come back to that. But with Sanchi, yeah, great guy to talk to, great clubhouse presence. I think Norby even mentioned it in a tweet. Like, such a good guy to have around. One of his favorite teammates. He was a guy who always had a smile when he struck out, when he made one of those low baseball IQ plays. But yeah, I think Houston got a great one. I think they got a guy who I think at that ballpark, as Nate noted, could definitely hit the 30 home runs. I mean, it's a great opportunity for him. Good situation for him there. I think what Will said, he's going to be a platoon with Cam Smith for now,
Right.
just to give Cam Smith some time off his feet. So good out. Yeah, it's a great opportunity for Sanchi. He's around for what, a couple more years there in Houston now too. So they have a good option for the future. And Sanchi, as much as his defense may not look great, I believe just maybe a week ago he had like a 0 outs above average. So he was exactly league average. And he has a great arm in the outfield. He makes some, like when he really gets it going there, he makes some nice plays.
Yeah, there had definitely been, I would argue this was his best defensive season to this point. There haven't been as many. The biggest mistakes he's had is when they put him in center field for just a little span of time. You guys remember, especially there was that one game in Dodger Stadium where they scored a bunch of runs and still lost because he was giving them away with a couple big mistakes. When you put him in the corner, specifically in right field, he's fine, even as clunky as it looks. We should pivot to Jacob Marcy, of course. That's the big news today. Big news that Kevin among the first to break it. There was a lot of competition this morning to get that scoop first about Marcy coming up. And there he is, very emotional, speaking to the media about finally reaching this goal. A 2022 draft pick of the Padres, who was traded over here in the Arise deal. Not even the headliner of that deal. I think most would say that he was number 2 piece behind Dylan Head. And I want to go right to Carver here. You brought him up before, but specifically, what is he doing so much better this year than he was last year? Like the fact that he entered this season towards the bottom of our top 30 list. We had him at like 24 entering opening day, and then he moved up to 23 as of this moment. But there's a lot of excitement about him. The numbers that he's put up in the minors kind of speak for themselves. But he has taken a big step forward this year.
Yeah, swing path is better. It's power to all fields. He had started to get pull heavy in previous years, and especially as a collegiate player. It's awesome to see this guy hit to all fields. It really is. And then the speed, like, I don't think he's the fastest guy in the world, but with what Jacksonville does with strategy on the bases, with Carpenter right there as the first base coach, the coach of the team, the manager of the team is their first base coach, and literally is there telling them how to get the most out of their secondary leads. You saw it with Troy Johnston, last year and this year, and now you're seeing it with Marcy, who's not the fastest dude in the world, but it's just understanding where he needs to get to in order to steal a base. What Troy Johnston, me and Kevin had him on the podcast. The main thing that they were doing in Jacksonville is if they notice that a pitcher is not going to have time to try to pick them off, they're just going to steal no matter what. So they're making the most out of the pitch clock. Marcy is doing that. If the clock gets under 5, I think Troy said, they're stealing the base every time. Troy and Marcy have both done exactly that. That pitch clock gets under 5, they're going to try to steal the base because they know that the pitcher is not going to have time to try to pick them off. So it's strategic. That's something that I think major league pitchers won't do. I think major league pitchers will check runners more often. So I would expect stolen base numbers to go down a little bit for these guys, but they're still strategic base stealers. And for Marcy himself, like I said, just figuring out how to hit to all fields, limit the strikeouts a little bit. I don't think he struck out much at all, even less than last year. So I mean, it's super cool to see a guy figure it out all the way. And like you said, I mean, it didn't really take him long to make the major league. So I'm happy for him. He deserves this, and we're going to see him on a regular basis. It seems. They say that they think he can play all 3 outfield spots. They say that he's going to be a regular guy out there. So I'm really against lefties and righties. So I'm really intrigued to see this guy play, and what he can do after just a short tenure in the minor leagues. What he did this year was great, and I think he figured it out. Really nothing left to prove. I think that he is very solid, and you see the arm on the screen as well. I mean, it's not bad on defense whatsoever. So yeah, I'm really stoked to see this prospect. A guy like you said that I didn't have in mind for top 30, fell out of top 30 or close to falling out of top 30 in my opinion. And this guy just came back all the way and filled the gaps that he needed to fill, and now he's a major leaguer. So I think more of a corner guy than anything. Yeah, the speed is decent. He's not a slow guy at all. I think his speed is decent. But I think a lot of what you see with the stolen bases is less speed and more strategy, which makes him more of a corner guy in my opinion. But he could still make a very nice living there for the Marlins. I'm intrigued to see what he's going to do against same side pitching. There's questions still to be answered. I don't think he's a finished product still at all, but he's well on his way to being that. And this is a deserved opportunity for him.
Yeah, I got to watch him, for the first time, like in person look, and it's just such a pesky like type of approach. Like he's gonna work the count, he's gonna go out in the base paths and be aggressive. And obviously the Marlins as an organization are being a lot more aggressive on base paths, but he does it in a way where like I would disagree a little bit. I think he is a lot faster than people give him credit for. Like just from the in-person looks, like he covers a lot of ground in center field. It's impressive how he does it too. So I wouldn't compare speed to Troy's. Troy noted it. He's more of a sneaky type of base stealer. Marcy, I think, uses the speed to his advantage, and he even noted it actually on Troy's pod. Like he found it easier to steal third than it is stealing second. And maybe I'm wrong, but I didn't know that was the case. Maybe not everyone feels the same about that, but he has the power. Is something that has really surprised me with Marcy. I didn't think he had it in him. Like what is it? 14 home runs, 12 home runs. Like he leads the jumbo shrimp in home runs, and you have Davis and De Los Santos on that team.
I want to point out he leads the entire minor league system in home runs this season. Nobody at any
There's
level.
some like impressive guys that have a lot of power. Kemp, you have as bad as he's been. Brock Vradenberg has a lot of power. Like there's guy and as I noted, Davis, and like there's guys who had a lot of power in this system, and for him to be leading the Marlins minor league system in home runs is impressive in itself. So I give him a lot of credit for that. Hits the ball all fields. It's a good profile. And I was talking to a lot of people after last season, and they're telling me like, just wait. I mean, this guy's underlying numbers were really good. Everything showed that he was going to be a solid big leaguer or a solid player to say the least. Like even last season, he was getting on base a lot. He was working walks. He was stealing a lot of bases. Like he was hitting hitting under the Mendoza line, and he was still like with a 350, 360 on base percentage, and he was making things happen regardless and playing good defense. So I'm not surprised that he's already up here. He should have been up here. He forced his way up here. He forced the organization's hand easily. I mean, obviously, I don't know how much the trade of Jesus Sanchez had to do with, saying, hey, we're going to bring up Marcy, so let's trade Sanchi. But eventually, he was going to come up regardless of trade or no trade, and I'm glad it's happening now. And to face the Yankees is pretty cool as your first team, regardless of how bad they've been recently. Like, it's still cool to face the Yankees in any stage in front of what's supposed to be a sellout crowd all 3 days.
This is
it's
from
reverse splits too in Jacksonville. We know Jacksonville is hitter friendly, but he actually has 10 of his 14 AAA home runs at a away ballparks. So it's not really just luck for this guy. It's not just Jacksonville being hitter friendly. It's that he's actually had most of his success on the road. So that's just another feather in his cap in terms of what he's been able to do with power. So super cool. I really attribute a lot of it to the ability to go to all fields, fight off tough pitches a little bit more, cover more plate. Those are kind of the main reasons why you see him succeeding offensively this season. I don't think he's slow, Kevin. I definitely think he's faster than Troy. I agree with you. I just don't really think he's a 60 tool speed guy. I think he's more of like a 50 speed guy. But like you said, he covers the ground necessary in order to play all 3 outfield positions and to get it done on the bases with the strategy that we talked about. So I'm stoked for this player. I'm glad that he's here and he's made the adjustments necessary to get here.
Yeah, I was gonna sorry, Eli. Like you mentioned it, AAA Jacksonville hitter friendly. Man, when I tell you that place is hitter friendly, like just looking at it in person, it's like I could see why Matt Mervis has almost 10 AAA home runs in the little amount of time he's been there. It is very, very hitter friendly. So what Robbie Snelling and those guys do, and the pitchers that have pitched well in Jacksonville do, it's impressive.
And I don't want to. I know we're not talking about him right now, but I think we will be soon. And I think I mentioned him a little bit earlier as a guy who I expect to be up later this season, at least when September call-ups happen. But anyways, I noted this a little bit ago when we did our first half team, Kevin. Joe Mack, almost everything he's done has been at Jacksonville offensively. So
Mhm.
again, I think Joe Mack's going to be very good, but just something to take into account is the fact that most of his success, they are extreme home road splits for that player. I hope that when he gets to Lone Depot Park, which is pretty neutral, I would say maybe slightly favors pitchers, if I'm being honest. But man, that's something that is going to be a question he needs to answer because the home road splits this year are massive for that player. Marcy doesn't have that problem.
Relax, Jeremiah. He's facing the left.
So in my opinion, it's great to see the excitement around this call up. My sense is that I think people are getting a little bit carried away, because I do just want to point out some yellow flags when it comes to him. The one is the platoon splits. He's been great against right-handed pitching this year. It's like an OPS in the mid 800s. Against lefties, it's in the mid 600s. You look back to last year, and it was the same thing, but to a lesser degree, where he wasn't even that good against righties last year, and he was awful against lefties. It was an OPS in the low 500s, no power whatsoever when facing same-handed pitching. He is essentially replacing Jesus Sanchez on this roster. Jesus Sanchez very famously being an extreme platoon player that had really uncompetitive at-bats against lefties. And like it is within the realm of possibility that Marcy fits that exact description, because he has not even shown it in the minors. You have a pretty big sample size in the minors of him making a reasonable amount of contact against lefties, but not with enough authority to be all that optimistic in terms of how that's going to translate to the big leagues, which is why I find tonight to be a very curious decision to make his debut against a very experienced and tough lefty in Carlos Rodon. So that surprised me a little bit. But I'm encouraged. The fact that they felt he was ready to be called up. If you're going to call him up, you should be playing him pretty much every day. And that seems to be the plan, close to every day, even against a very tough lefty, to get started on this note. With that being said, what else did I want to point out? One reason why he draws so many walks is that he's very patient, as you see right here, a chase rate in the 93rd percentile of AAA hitters, a swing rate that is a very low swing rate. He just doesn't offer even all that much on pitches in the zone unless he really likes them. So that is part of what he does. He also has a relatively small strike zone. So if you want, I do have a particular comp in mind, that in terms of the shape of his profile in a very optimistic scenario, there are some shades of Brett Gardner in there. Like physically to a T, it's the exact same body and
At least it's not Buster Posey.
Set up at the plate. I think most people are familiar with Brett Gardner. Coincidentally played for the Yankees his entire major league career. Off the top of my head, it was like 14, 15 seasons over there. There's one fluky year with the juiced ball where he hit like 30 home runs, but overall he was a guy that was generally in the low double digits, between 10 and 20 in most years. Early in his career, a ton of stolen bases. As it got on, went down. In his case, his value was a lot higher than anybody could have hoped, because he became basically the best defensive left fielder in baseball, or one of the best, in a way that his WAR really rewarded him. I don't think that part is necessarily going to be part of Marcy. That seems pretty optimistic. But in terms of a guy that I think is going to be significantly better against righties than lefties, and one that's, as Kevin kind of described it, as a pretty pesky player that is going to create extra bases in situations that you don't expect, and one that just doesn't make too many big mistakes. So it's shades of that. I don't think that's the realistic expectation, though. Like if you could plan on a guy being a consistent 4 WAR player for a handful of years, he'd be the top prospect in this whole organization. So I think that's the guy. I think this is a player that could peak at that type of status, where he's a guy that in his best years, his on-base percentages could be in the very high 300s. And around that, he does enough things well that he could be an upgrade compared to what they've been getting for Jesus Sanchez, just because as an all-around player, he kind of checks more boxes, in my opinion. But gets started tonight. He's hitting 9th tonight, and he's playing center field. So that's another interesting twist, that they've been getting good center field defense from Dane this season, and yet it is Marcy right away that's going to center, and Dane that is shifting to right.
I think it's worth noting too, Derek Hill is pretty close to coming back. Like I would have to say within the next week, he's going to go on a rehab assignment. I think, and I know that was part of the reason why they waited this long, not like waited this long in terms of like, why didn't tell Marcy earlier that he would be called up? Because obviously we know he was scratched yesterday and all that stuff. So they're still determining something there, but it was what I heard. But I would be curious to see what happens within the next week. Cause I guess Winkler would be the guy you could send down, but that's another outfield you're adding to the mix there. So I don't know. I feel like I would be stunned if they sent Marcy back down, but at the same time, like, does Dane have an option? Because he has not been hitting well within the last month. That's a guy who really needs to get it going, and now he's losing some center field playing time there, and you're having Marcy in the lineup over, like it's certain factors. Bert continues to hit well. I'm surprised that he continues to hit so well and do so well. So I think there's a lot of factors that go into, this whole situation with the outfield and Marcy and all that stuff.
I think we should acknowledge the opponent in this case, a very high profile one in the Yankees, and including a guy that we're all very familiar with in Jazz Chisholm Jr. This is his first time playing a regular season game against the Marlins since that trade right before the 2024 deadline. Jazz is back, and that was a very divisive trade just because of how popular he was among Marlins fans. And the return that they got in that moment was people really didn't know how to value him last year because he was underperforming a little bit based on what people thought. And it was just a very complicated player to put your finger on. He was really good with the Yankees the rest of last year. And it's been more the same this year, where overall his numbers across the board a little bit better than it even was as a Marlin. But Nate, where do we stand on the legacy of that trade? Because I think early in the season, everybody was saying win-win for sure. Jazz was doing great. Gus was right at the top of the Rookie of the Year conversation. And at this point, I mean, Gus is still in the lineup a lot, and he's still doing really well offensively, but his defense has, if anything, maybe taken a slight step back as this year has gone on. I think, at least in my mind, tell me what you think, that Jazz's value would probably be higher now than it was a year ago. So you think they would have been better off holding onto him a little longer and hoping for this kind of level of consistency? Or ultimately did they have to dump him in the same way that they did everybody else at last year's deadline?
That's tough. I think, just like you said, just because he's been a little bit more consistent this year, that probably does drive his value up a little bit. Obviously, his time in Miami was hindered with a lot of injuries. Obviously, he came up in 21, started out awesome, and then got hurt probably a handful of times that year. And that became a theme with Jazz, unfortunately. But ever since being with the Yankees, he's been healthy for the most part. My biggest gripe with Jazz for a long time, he talks a big game, but when the lights are the brightest and it's, the clutch moments, he really seems to go down. I remember, of course, in Philly in 23, he said he was an alien pregame in the wild card, and I think he went, I don't even know if he got hit that series. And in Kansas City, when they were booing him at Kauffman Stadium, he didn't do much there either. So that's always been my concern with Jazz, is his ability to hit really in those big moments. Of course, he had that grand slam against the Braves during the chase in 23, which was awesome. But I think right now it's a win-win. I think it could go either way still. If Augustine eventually, once, full-time DH, maybe they'll finally give him reps at first base. Who knows what the deal is there. Jared Stern is kind of looking like a lost cause as of now. Of course, he's still young, but that bat is such a huge concern. Can't hit for much pop at all. Abraham Ramirez, who was a lottery ticket in that trade, has actually done pretty well in Jupiter. Not going to hit for a lot of power, but he has good contact, good glove, good speed. So something to look at. I'm not sure what he's going to amount to exactly, but I think as of now, he's probably the second best piece in that trade, just with how much Stern has unfortunately struggled since starting 2025 out. But yeah, I'd say as of now, it's even. If Gus can really put it together with the bat and find more of a defensive position, or just full-time DH, it could go Miami's way. Or if he continues to flounder behind the plate and probably just taps out 25, 30 homers a season, and Jazz stays healthy and becomes a big face of that Yankees team, which I was concerned with, admittedly, when he went to New York, how to be able to handle, all the criticism that comes with being a New York Yankee. And it's gone, I'd probably say 50-50 so far. So we'll see, obviously, when it comes to the playoffs this year, how he responds. But I wonder what he's going to do in a return to Miami. He's definitely a showman. So if he goes deep and does a little pimp job, I would not be too surprised.
I wanted to note this because I remember at the time of the trade, Jazz had reverse splits. Like, it was the big thing. Jazz finally hitting left-handed pitching. He's looking great against it. He's been terrible against lefties. Like, not terrible, but he hasn't been good. Like, he's hitting, what is it? Where is it? 241. Nah, not great. Like a 626 OPS against left-handed pitching. Not great. So obviously he's playing every day. He was an all-star. So good for him with the Yankees. I think second ever all-star appearance for him, or third. Mm-hmm. But he's the second. Yeah, he's been good with the Yankees. Like, the power's there. It helps him out. I mean, you have the short porch. It's a hitter-friendly ballpark, and I'm curious to see what he'll do. This is quote unquote his second return to Lone Depot Park since the trade, given he played in that one exhibition game. But this is the real now. This counts. This really counts, and it's gonna be a sellout crowd for 3 straight days. So he's gonna have we'll see how this goes. I'm curious to see his return to Miami.
Yeah. Well, as we have Alex Krutchik from the press box checking in with us, the crowd is kind of the first place people want to start. Well, first of all, could you describe, Krutchik, how this kind of series complicates our coverage, that you had to park off site? For people that aren't familiar, how this kind of changes the routine in this rare situation where they're anticipating a big crowd?
Yeah, normally we all park in the garage, the same crowd is parked in, but because of the amount of people that are expecting tonight, a lot of the media and a lot of the state employees had to park at a church like 3 miles down the road, and they had shuttle buses taking us to and from, like those coach buses that you would go on an overnight field trip on when you were in elementary school. Those kinds of buses. But pretty seamless once you got there. I don't know what the scene is going to be like after the game. They opened up the upper deck tonight. Looks like it's not going to be a sellout, but it's going to be a pretty good crowd. I wouldn't be surprised if it's maybe not tonight, but at some point this weekend, I think we're going to get 30,000. I think they'll break 30,000 probably on Sunday. But tonight it should be in the high 20s. Lots of Yankee fans here, but still more Marlins fans than you think. To my left, so the press box is lined up perfectly with the first few rows of the upper deck. So I'm like high level with these people, and I see like 10 people all wearing the old Marlins field jerseys. So we have good representation tonight.
Your audio is not the greatest, Mr. Krutchik. You may have to go to some different headphones or something.
Oh, geez, let me find some.
Sorry.
Well, let us take that moment to just pull up the lineups for tonight so that people are familiar. No Aaron Judge in here, as he is on the IL with it's kind of a forearm related issue, a flexor tendon thingy, flexor strain. So he's going to be out for this series, and that's a pretty important competitive advantage for the Marlins in this one, to not have to deal with him. As we try there, as we could go back to Krutchik. I can't believe it. I keep overlooking it just because he's been with the Yankees now as long as he was with the Marlins. But Stanton is back in town. Have you seen Stanton pregame, Alex K? Anybody else, any of the players in particular from the Yankees that you've noticed on the field or that have particularly big crowds around them at this stage?
Yes, Stanton and Judge both had the biggest crowds, which is to be expected. Stanton was flicking them out of the ballpark. I've always loved watching his swing. It's the exact same as it was in Miami, which I love. And all he does is he flicks his wrist just a little bit, and the ball flies 450. And it's nice to see that nothing's changed other than the jersey.
We have Isaac Azut there at the ballpark as well, providing coverage with us. Well, Isaac, being that you were with Peter Bendix when he actually talked about some of the trade deadline activity and inactivity, we covered the activity portion of it. What stood out about his explanation in terms of why they didn't make more moves, being a team that I think everybody anticipated would be more active than they actually were?
Yeah, I just want to make sure you guys can hear me okay. Everything's sounding all right?
Yes, very good.
Excellent. Anyway, give me a thumbs up to Alex Krutchik. Yeah, Peter Bendix did hold a little media scrum where no cameras were allowed, basically to be on TV. Craig Mish interviewed him before we got him. And that'll be on Marlins Live. It's beginning, I guess, now it should be on. But Peter did mention, and he did acknowledge that this recent surge, this 2-month surge where the Miami Marlins have been the hottest team in Major League Baseball, did factor in the decision with Sandy anyway. He didn't mention Cabrera, but he did say that did play a little bit of a factor. And he that everything they do is for sustained success, and that everything they had conversations with everybody, et cetera, et cetera. He used all of his famous buzzwords, but and I asked him about Cal Quantrill. He mentioned that he has been pitching extremely well and that he is a leader in this rotation, and that they did not feel comfortable trading him. Take that with what you will.
We covered Marcy's imminent debut on here, but you having got another opportunity to speak with him and see him so far, What do you have to say about getting this call up and this opportunity?
He was extremely emotional. He acknowledged that he choked up a few times driving down to Miami from Jacksonville. His family, his girlfriend, his girlfriend's father is all going to be here. He was told that he's going to be playing mostly center field, but all over the outfield, playing pretty much every day, I think, especially versus righties, against some lefties as well, including tonight against Carlos Rodon. But yeah, a very sweet kid that's very grateful for the opportunity. He said when he was a sophomore in high school is when he started to think that he might have a chance to make it to the major leagues. He said he leans a lot on Graham Pauley, Marlins third baseman, for support. I guess they were drafted the same year. He seems like a really good kid, and the Marlins are excited to have. Yeah,
The San Diego Marlins.
That's true.
indeed.
So the fact that they held on to all their pitchers, the roster, it's not what we're used to, where the roster basically looks the same as it did before the deadline, with the exception of Sanchez gone, Marcy up, and they designated Anthony Veneziano for assignment for so much this season. He was the only lefty on their active roster and now in DFA limbo.
I feel so bad for that guy. He was the only lefty. They burned him to the ground here. And
Kevin got to see firsthand what may have been his last appearance in the organization. You saw him in Jacksonville a couple days ago, and he was not particularly effective in that.
Gave up 2 home runs.
Yeah.
Is there an injury update? Any injuries report? Isaac or Krojcik?
No injury report. No injury report. I think the only thing that would have been interesting to listen to was Derek Hill. But other than that, you would assume that everyone's progressing. Griffin Conine is progressing. Braxton Garrett is progressing. Ryan Weathers, we should be hearing something about him coming soon, but Max Meyer progressing. But no, we are actually, it's been a hectic day. I just wanted to touch on, obviously, the Marlins are playing the New York Yankees, basically, New York South when it comes to the summertime. It's a madhouse down there, whether it's on the field with the amount of fans behind home plate for pregame festivities, with the amount of media that's here to cover both the Marlins post deadline and the New York Yankees. A lot of former Yankees and Marlins on each other's teams. It's been a madhouse, so I guess I don't blame the Marlins for forgetting for the injury report today.
Big crowd for Jansen Junk.
Yes, Jansen Junk for sure. For anybody that's not familiar.
I don't know if we already knew this, but Griffin Conine's swinging.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Connor Norby is here as well. We saw him. He seems to be doing fine. He was doing some activity. He's not doing baseball. He's not hitting yet, but he has been running around and doing some exercise. But I think he's still a while away.
Yeah. Last thing we should get from Isaac is it's a pretty big milestone on Sunday. Former Marlins president David Sampson says that he'll attend a Marlins home game for the first time since being fired from his previous position. But that seems to be because of the Jack McKeon Hall of Fame induction, right? And in support of the guy that he brought in the first place in the middle of that 2003 season, because next in line to be inducted into the Marlins Legends Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I hope to talk to him on Sunday. He is in fact going to be here. I actually asked about David Sampson today, and I was told that he will be put up in one of the suites at Lone Depot Park for Sunday's ball game. As well, he's going to be accompanied by Michael Hill, former president of baseball operations. Michael Hill, he now works for Major League Baseball, as we all know. And when say what you want about how this team was run while they were both in charge, but they are very significant pieces and characters in this organization's history. So I very much look forward to seeing them on Sunday. Hopefully Kevin and Louis Adio Weiss will have your coverage. I'll be there for some of the pregame festivities, maybe try and get an interview with the infamous former president, David Sampson. But yeah, it's looking out to be a really fun weekend here in South Florida. And like I said on the spaces, obviously the inactivity, some of us were disappointed, but at the end of the day, it's a business, and the Marlins having Sandy and Cabrera goes on Sunday, pitching against the Yankees and Astros. It's good for business. So there's going to be a lot of people here, more than there would have been had they traded a lot of guys.
If you thought David Sampson was going to get booed by the people in Miami, he's going to get booed even more by the Yankees fans who lost the 2003 World Series. So.
I don't think that's true. I don't think the Yankees.
I don't think they care. I'm going to go up.
He's going to get booed regardless.
You know what?
And it's going to feel even louder because it's a sellout crowd.
Why don't we go up to 15 Yankee fans tonight, Isaac, and ask all of them who David Sanson is, and we'll see how many people say they know.
Yeah.
He's a
One,
bigger media presence now than he was back then, so people know who he is.
Kevin, I couldn't disagree more. The Yankee fans could not give less of a poop about who the president of the Marlins was when they lost in the World Series. The Yankees have since won a World Series after that
Only
loss
one,
in
though.
03. Only one. So no,
Exactly.
I'm not sure if Samson will be shown on screen. I find that hard to believe.
Do you think
I don't think
will he be on the field for the pregame festivity?
That's another good question. I'm gonna ask. I will ask.
You see?
Did you guys know
He might
that
be.
World Series was the last World Series ever played at that Yankee Stadium?
I didn't hear, but I will ask if Samson will be included in the on-field festivities for Jack McKeon, his introduction into the Marlins Hall of Fame, as well as his bobblehead. I think so. I think he'll be. It's that he wasn't for Leland, which would make sense, and he wasn't for Conine. It would have made sense for him to be there for Conines. So I'm not sure. I will ask, and I'll have an answer on that by the end of the day.
Which he claimed he would be there for Conine. He said that so many times that he'd be there for Griffin Conine's debut. But I guess
Right, but I mean Jeff Conine's induction into the Marlins Hall of Fame. That I thought he would have made sense, but he
I
wasn't
didn't
going to be
suppose he
here.
wasn't there for that one, but yeah.
Right, but no, yeah, I will ask him, David. I don't think he'll be shown, so there will be no opportunity to be booed. But no, I don't think the Yankee fans would care to boo him at all.
I agree. Don't think they care whatsoever. Well, thank you to Isaac and Alex. We also have Hector Rodriguez on the scene. He's going to be recapping the game. So follow them and also check out our coverage on Fish on First. Thank you, guys.
You're welcome.
Just one final look about the lineups tonight for the series opener. Reminder that they are going up against a lefty. And so we've seen it on the Yankees side. They acquired Ryan McMahon from the Rockies about a week ago. He's off to a hot start with the team. Stanton has been great when he's been healthy this year, but he missed basically half a season due to this strange elbow condition, and no Judge in the middle of that. I know that Alex Carver has some strong opinions about Anthony Volpe, who has had a lot of hype when he got called up and that showed a lot of promise as a rookie, but has sort of stagnated, if not regressed a little bit as this year has gone on. Do you want to get in a word about Volpe, Carver, as somebody that watches quite a bit of the Yankees outside of Marlins stuff?
And it's just a hapless short. It's not a shortstop. That's the long and short of it is that player is not a shortstop. That's it. I mean, the power potential is intriguing, especially for a guy of that size. But this season he has made some of the worst plays, some of the easiest plays look so bad at that position, and there's not really a lot getting past that. So, what do they do with him? I mean, they can't really move him to second base because you got Jazz. So what? You have other players as well in other positions, so you can't really do anything with that player. So he has to play shortstop. So they're basically stuck starting that player at shortstop, and he doesn't belong there. So I don't know what the long-term answer for that player is, but he doesn't belong in that position. I'll tell you that. It started out okay for him defensively, but he's just really, really regressed at that position, where you're literally hurting your team by making routine plays look so difficult, overthrowing first baseman, and these are like the rest of that infield is very tenured. So it's very, 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 very worrisome for the Yankees that player is so bad at that position. So I don't know what the long-term answer for them is. What do you do with that player whose home really should be second base? I think take the pressure off. Let his bat work. His bat's not bad. Let his bat work. Take the pressure off. He's really struggling. It's probably getting to him mentally. So you have to do something with that player. You can't really live like that much longer with a player that is that bad at that position. So again, the offense is intriguing. I think they should take the pressure off, but they're kind of stuck. So I don't understand, or I mean I understand. I just don't really know what they're gonna do. With that kind of a player.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, long term, I guess it's Lombard, right? He would eventually slide in at shortstop. But in the short term, they just traded for Caballero, and I don't know. I mean, Volpe, I didn't even realize how bad he'd been. -6 outs above average, and the DRS is probably not much better. So
Just Marlins put the comment on the bottom just to address that. There's an inside joke in our circle that is the Marlins just needed to aim better in a certain series. I think they could aim they could aim really well by hitting the ball at shortstop in this series.
yeah.
I'd referenced at the start of the show that it was a busy deadline around the league, even if not for the Marlins. And the Yankees are the biggest example. They made a gazillion different acquisitions. McMahon, Ahmed Rosario, Austin Slater, Jake Bird, Jose Caballero. That was the shortstop insurance that was just a reference to Camilo Doval, David Bednar, Oswald, and they traded away Oswald Peraza. And I just included the Brian De La Cruz one at the very top because, of course, a former Marlin. He was DFA'd, never even played in a major league game for the Yankees. He had been with their AAA team most of the year. But look at that. They just overhauled their bullpen at this deadline and added a handful of role players to give them more depth on the position player side. Entering this series, there really is not a huge gap record-wise between these teams. You'd be surprised how close they are. It's just that this is kind of why playoff odds and other people are skeptical about a team like the Marlins making up ground, is just because the teams buy at the deadline when they're holding on to wild card spots or in contention for a division, and the Marlins didn't buy. Meanwhile, a lot of the teams ahead of them, the Yankees don't apply. They're in the other league. I'm just saying that it creates a bigger gap when teams like this just load up to address some of their flaws.
Hey, they acquired those guys because they remember what happened last time the Yankees were in Miami on that Sunday with a 7-run comeback. So they had to bring in Bednar and Doval to make sure that doesn't happen. It's a half joke. But they did need bullpen help time.
It's an extremely small sample size, and this guy's the bulk of his career in a hitter-friendly environment in Colorado, the most hitter-friendly environment in baseball, obviously, has not been fantastic, especially lately. And again, very small sample size, so getting that out of the way. But offensively and defensively, what Ryan McMahon has done for the Yankees has been intriguing to me. So I'm gonna be interested to watch that player play in this series.
Mm-hmm. Let's head right into prediction time.
This is prediction time.
I think we're going to win a lot more games than you think we're going to win this year.
They're trying to win a 6th consecutive series. As I said earlier in the show, they have beaten not just winning those series, but against teams that are favored against them. So this is no different, even being at home, playing in front of a lot of Yankee fans. They're going to be underdogs here. Hector Rodriguez covering on site today. He happens to be at the very top of our prediction time board. He has broken that tie with one of our super subs, Rings. That's Alec Chow. So our live stream guests, our staffers, and our super subs are the ones we keep track of their prediction time points all season long. Keep making those predictions down the stretch. As long as you get it in before first pitch on our site in the Marlins Discord server, either of those spots, I'll take it, I'll grade it, and I have the leaderboard up on the site, updated after every series. How many games the Marlins will win? Who will be the series MVP as determined by win probability added. We will get the background, the music up, and then I will start with Kevin.
I unfortunately will have to go with the Yankees taking 2 out of 3, and I'm going to go with Giancarlo Stanton as the series MVP. I feel like he's coming back for God knows how many times now it's been, but I think he'll make Marlins pitching pay, and we'll have a big series.
Let's check in with Alex Carver. Knows both of these teams well. Go ahead.
Well, they're going to miss Judge, and they got these new call-ups in town. My boy's in town, Troy. Marcy's here in town, facing 2 lefties. Jansen Junk's going to be so stoked to be back around his high school adversary, Troy Johnston. He's going to have a great start. We're going to go to Yuri. He's going to hold it down, and then we're going to get Eddie, and we're going to be so glad that they kept Eddie. Against 2 lefties, the Marlins will win 2 out of 3, and against 2 righties, I was going to do this. Troy Johnston's the MVP.
Nate Karsmer, go ahead.
Why not, man? It's going to be a packed house in Lundua Park this weekend. It's going to be awesome. Probably the loudest crowds we've seen all year, maybe in a handful of years, to be honest with you. Marlins are playing good ball. The Yankees just made a ton of acquisitions at this deadline. And when the lights are the brightest, we all know who's going to come through. Kyle Stowers going to hit a walk-off tomorrow. I'm calling that shot now. Marlins win 2 out of 3 with Jack McKeon in attendance on Sunday. Great experience against the Yankees, of course. Marlins win 2 out of 3. Let's do it.
I have to give my own prediction and also share. We don't have a special guest on the stream, but I have my dad, Doug Sussman, checking in. He is a lifelong diehard Yankees fan. So first, my own prediction, I do have the Marlins winning 2 out of 3. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt until this streak is stopped. Even though there's a lot of new talent coming in to the Bronx, who knows exactly how long it will take for them to mesh. I think the Marlins are catching the Yankees at a nice time to win 2 out of 3 in this series. My MVP pick is going to be Augustin Ramirez, the Gus Bus, part of our new merch collection. Now to give Doug's prediction from Douglas Sussman, he says the Yankee pitching matchup is strong for the series. I predict a sweep. Jazz will take revenge and be the MVP. He's going Yankees winning all 3 of this series. And I cannot wait to watch part of the series with him, probably tomorrow's middle game of that series. It'll be an interesting dynamic. But I've been Eli Sussman along with Kevin Barral, Alex Carver, Nate Karsmer, Alex Krutchik, and Isaac Azut at the ballpark. This has been Fish on First Live, presented by About the Fans. We'll get out of here. Enjoy your weekends. New stream coming up on Monday, and a lot of coverage between now and then on Fish on First. As always, go Fish.
Fish on First Live is presented by About the Fans. We've partnered with them this season on a brand new merchandise collection featuring t-shirts, polos, hats, and other accessories that Marlins fans will absolutely love. Head on over to aboutthefans.com to shop the FOF collection. Use our special coupon code FOF10 to save 10% off your order. Enter code FOF10 at checkout to save 10% and continue supporting what we do over here.